Hello, welcome to the Inner Goddess Interviews. I'm Thurman, and I'm chatting with women who are unleashing their inner goddess and following their soul path. And today I'm absolutely delighted to have Jenny Griffin with me today. She is a Catharsis Coach, and at the moment she's up in Scotland, but she's from Canada, and she has a fascinating story and she does amazing work. So welcome, Jenny. Thank you so much for sitting with me through my technical difficulties again. Thank you. Catharsis Coach, it's a really interesting concept, but what exactly do you do? Can you walk me through? If I came to you, what would you help me with?
It's mainly about huge changes, and it's a shift in perspective. So sometimes as you're going through a massive, it can feel quite traumatic sometimes, change in your life. Like, people go through this all the time, but feel so alone. And I know that I went through it myself, and I just had no idea what was happening. But what was happening was a complete shift in consciousness within myself, moving through some of the really old, deep beliefs that were coming up to be addressed. And so I'm kind of there to hold space as other people go through this. And I don't have necessarily a set group of tools, because I work intuitively, and I'm also empathic. So I hold space and basically work with my guidance to figure out what is needed in that moment, but help people to find the shifts that they're, I shouldn't say needing, but I mean, they know when they come to me that something needs shifting. And it's not that I'm saying, hey, this is what needs to shift. It's that we work through it together, really. It's that they talk, and I listen to what's beneath the words in a way, and find sort of what their soul wants them to know, I think, is what I do. And I don't know how I do it, so it sounds like I'm, that's a big, hey, look, but I think basically it's like I allow my higher self to speak to their higher self, so that we find the shift, and find the gift in the experience of what they're looking for. Because it can be so easy to focus on the suffering part. Like, for instance, if your partner cheats on you and you think, why would they make this choice? Like, what does this say about me? Then to look at, just to examine the feelings as they come up, to find the gifts of whatever is underneath. Because always these feelings, this darkness is showing us that there is something in ourselves asking to be addressed. And it doesn't have to be, it's not like you have to go back into your past and relive every horrible moment. It's that it just wants to be acknowledged for an experience that was there to teach you something.
I wish I've gone, when I was at 30, I got divorced, and literally my whole life fell apart. It wasn't just a divorce, it was a job, it was family, everything changed. And I wish that there was someone that I could have talked to at that time, because I just felt like I was in this black hole and no one else understood, or they actually weren't on the same wavelength as me, because my life was then going into a different direction. Are these the kind of situations of people that you work with that, it does seem like your whole life is falling apart?
Yeah.
And it is very easy to focus on the negative emotions that come up, because you're right in the middle of that situation, and for someone to say, yeah, but it's going to be amazing at the end. How do you help people see that amazing bit? Because usually when big changes happen, there are gifts, you just can't see it. How can you help people to see that the change is necessary and ultimately good?
It's different every time, but usually they're already getting a sense of it themselves. So it's kind of like I'm holding space for them to really let go deeply and to allow themselves to just access the truth that's already there within themselves. And yeah, it's hard to explain how. It's funny because I'm just trying to think of, but really it's like there's always a shift there. There's always a shift in perspective, no matter how small it is. So as people are talking, I sort of, unpick the words and feel what's underneath, and then say, when you said that, can you see that if you just shifted it slightly, that it, takes you to this? Or, like I know for me, as I was going through my catharsis, what triggered it was that it was the end of a relationship, but it wasn't really a significant relationship, but it was significant in that it was a catalyst for me to go really deep into a pattern that had been, present in my life. So quite often, people who come to me are the same. It's been a sort of repetitive pattern, but the pattern is there to show you that you're resisting something. And so once we can work through and figure out, what is this saying? And it's not like about blaming yourself, but it's about taking a responsibility for the way that you have been responding to that pattern in a way. And then quite often, actually in all the cases of the people that I've worked with, these major shifts are also resulting in a connection with their intuitive selves and their more spiritual sides. So this can also be confusing because, if you're an academic and you're going through a big change and then all of a sudden you feel like intuitive and you're going, oh my God, how do these two combine? So there's quite a lot of, different things happening. But I think that some of these major shifts really are designed to get you to that sense of, there is so much more to me than all this stuff that I've believed about myself for years. And so somehow I help get to the root of that. And I know it sounds very vague, but I honestly don't know how I do it. So
it really doesn't matter how you do it, does it? It's just that you do it. And I love the way that you work intuitively, because we're not all cookie cutter people. And you can't just like give someone a questionnaire, fill it in, and I know exactly what you're going to do. And we're all different, and I think that's a great thing. And I think it's so much we're missing that intuitive connection, that personal connection today. So big thumbs up to you, Jenny. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. And I love it too. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. That's the best thing, isn't it? If you love what you're doing and you're helping people, then you're making a wonderful change in the world. It's brilliant. You're my inner goddess revolutionary for change. Hey. Was this your journey? You come from an academic background yourself, so how did you cope with mixing your academic life with obviously a very intuitive side of you? Did you always have it, or was it just part of the change and then all of a sudden you've got these intuitive hunches and empathy?
Well, I have always had that voice in my head, but I didn't understand it to be my intuition. My dad died when I was quite young, and I actually used to talk to him all the time. So I think sometimes I thought it was his voice, or I just kind of understood it to be a voice which always gave me good advice. But it was as I went through my cathartic process 8 years ago, I really started tuning in and understanding that this was a guiding voice, a voice of my intuition. And then, at that point I started to realize it sort of came from a different place in my head than my thoughts. My thoughts seem to come from here. My intuition is like back here, deep inside somewhere, and it never gives you bad advice, or sometimes it gives you confusing advice because it says go left, and you're sure that you need to go right because you can see where you want to get to, but you have to do it anyway. But it never tells you your stupid, or that you have no value like the thoughts and the beliefs do. The intuition is always there, just a kind of gentle guide. And sometimes it shouts if it needs to. But the academic thing was difficult because I went back to school about 4 or 5 years after my catharsis, because I kept following this thread, catharsis, 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 and it led me here. And the largest that I could picture at that time was a PhD. So I thought, okay, that's what I need. And I guess I also thought that that piece of paper would give me validity, or, give me something that I didn't feel I had within myself. So I went into the academic world, and I did feel like I was living 2 lives. And that was difficult because I couldn't bring my spirituality into my academic work, because the school that I had chosen wasn't really into that. They were more on the scientific side. And so after a year, I did the master's portion, and then I said, no, this isn't it's not gonna work. And the school agreed it wasn't gonna work. So then it was able to expand. And now when I write, I just sit down, and then whatever comes that day comes. So it's just this process of sort of letting it flow through me. And then I've done a series of interviews with about 20 odd people I've interviewed over the last year and a bit. And I'm fitting their stories of catharsis in around, like they're just weaving together with the stuff that's coming through.
Is that part of your book?
That's the first book, yeah.
That's the first book.
Yeah.
Jenny's writing 7 books, so brilliant, and she's almost finished her first one.
Yay.
So it's brilliant news.
Oh, no.
When can we expect your first book, by the way?
Well, I've set myself a date for finishing of the 24th of August, which is my birthday, because I thought that would be a nice way to celebrate my birthday. But I don't know, publishing-wise, I still have to sort that out. But again, my guides have just said, just write, and the rest just we'll figure that out later. So my main task at the moment is to write.
What advice could you give someone who may be in an academic situation, or actually anyone who has an intuitive voice, that voice in their head, but they can't trust themselves to listen to it? How did you finally realize that it was your intuition and you were going to listen to it? Well, is there anything? Sorry, carry on.
Oh no, that's okay. Did you have another question?
I was just going to ask, just basically, what would be the first step that you could give someone?
I would say that as hard as it is, sometimes that the voice of your intuition is the voice of your truest, deepest self, and the closest. It's your link to source, and it would never ever steer you wrong. So the thing is, when you're trying to fit yourself into something that you're not, that's where you feel the resistance, and that's where you feel situations setting in where some people get migraine headaches, others feel their lives falling apart around them, others just feel constant stress of trying to be somebody that they're not. It is a huge act of surrender to allow yourself to just be connected and be who you are, but it is probably the greatest gift you will ever give to yourself. So I don't know if that's it. I know that's not a step. It's more of a like, oh my God, just do it. But I can't say, like, as much as my life has not been perfect by any means, and I've had lots of challenges, but I would never ever go back to not listening to my intuition. it's painful not to listen to it. It's like you're splitting yourself in two, and it's like you're cutting yourself off from source, and we are all a part of that. So once you reconnect with it, it's like coming home.
Do you think that people don't listen to their intuition because on maybe a subconscious level they know that if they listen to this voice then their life is going to change because their old patterns are going to fall away because it just won't fit them anymore?
Yeah. I think that's probably a big part of it. Like, what will my life look like if I am not in control? Because we believe that we're in control of our lives, that we are the ones who are driving, so to speak. But then as you start to surrender more and more to your intuition, you realize that your attempts at driving are pretty hilarious sometimes, Like, I love sometimes making a plan, and then Source comes along, and you go totally the opposite direction, but you end up where you had wanted to be in a way that is so much better than you ever could have planned, and you go, oh my God, I thought I could plan, like, oh, how lame am I? It's kind of funny, actually. You just get to you start to realize, plans are funny. They're probably hilarious to the universe because, we're not great planners, really.
That's so true. I've experienced that so much. You think you're going to go one way, and then the universe gives you all kinds of surprises along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you also think that there's, we're not a society that thinks, I think it's the wrong word. We don't. If people say that they've got a voice in their head, they automatically, society looks at you bad, like you've got a mental health problem, that you don't want to admit that you've got a voice talking to you because you could get yourself thrown or, locked up. Yeah. It's such a bad way of looking at things, that our society is so out of whack with our intuitive side. So do you think that is a resistance for people as well?
I'm sure it probably is. I mean, it was really difficult for me to make the full transition into, people call it woo-woo or whatever, but it's like you go from academia, which is like every word that comes out of your mouth has to be grounded in some kind of theory. You have to, figure out who said it before you, whereas every word that comes out of your mouth when you're in tune with your intuition, I have no idea where it comes from, and I'm not going to go searching for where it came from either. It's just, you just trust it. And sure, maybe somebody said it before, or maybe somebody is saying it simultaneously, or maybe I'm tuning into the collective, which is even, an amazing, powerful idea that we all have the capacity to access this. And I think I love that this is about the inner goddess, because it is about reconnecting with that divine feminine energy, which is a very intuitive, creative, receptive space where you can completely accept that you are receiving constantly from all around you. And everything that you see has been placed there. We're co-creating our experience as we go. And for sure. I mean, it's hard. Like, I decided at one point to just write on my about page, yes, I have a voice in my head, and that's what guides me, because I had to make the leap from sort of checking myself constantly when I was in academia, check, don't want to talk too much about that. You don't want to feel too crazy. But then it's like, no, if I'm going to do this, this is really who I am. And I do. I have a very strong voice in my head. And sometimes I don't know where the words I speak come from, but I've stopped questioning it. So, yeah, you really, and I can understand that would be a scary leap for people, to really, like, let go of this one way of being where you're sort of always having to explain or or check what you're saying, and then to just say and be totally out there.
It's a scary thing to admit it, but it's also great. It's liberating, and because you've written your about page, you said you've got a voice in your head, and the work that you do is all soul led and intuitive. You're showing other people that they're not, the weirdos, the strange ones, because there's other people like you out there and making a difference. That, I think it's amazing. The world needs more of this, so people don't feel so alone. And there's people's stories to be told and shared, and that's part of the sisterhood, isn't it? And great stuff. So I think when you go through change, you feel very isolated, especially if your intuition is opening up and you've ignored it before, and you don't think that there's anyone else experiencing what you're experiencing. So kudos, Jenny.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's a challenging time and confusing and so painful. I mean, for me, going through my catharsis, it was months and months on end of sobbing for about 3 hours a day, which I would work around my work schedule. And then I was being guided to take these long walks, so I would just walk and walk, and it was very healing. And I was also guided to find somebody who worked with mind-body-spirit connection. So that's when I was sort of first introduced to energy healing, and it was called Body Talk, the form that I found. But it's like when you tell someone that you're sobbing for 3 hours a day, again, it's that idea like you're mentally ill. It's like, no, I was not mentally ill, and I knew that. Something in me was saying, nope, you just got to let it out. You just got to let it out. I was not crazy. I was healing on a very deep emotional level. All the stuff that I'd suppressed for years and years, and possibly even lifetimes, and it was just coming up in these waves of grief. It was pure grief. But every time every time I released that grief, I would find this beautiful revelation underneath that was like, hey, I don't have to believe that about myself anymore. Oh my God, how cool is that? And then I would go to one of my body talk sessions and the same thing would come up through my body. So I was releasing on all these different levels. But it was like, the things that you've been told all your life, you do not have to believe. You have a choice. And at some point you chose to believe them, so you can choose to unbelieve them or choose to believe something new. So as you're releasing, I guess that's the thing with catharsis that feels so vulnerable as you're going through these changes. Like you're releasing all this stuff, but what is coming in? And that's what you don't know. So you're in this sort of limbo space of total rawness where you feel like, I don't know who I am, because everything that defined me before that I believed about myself, I have just released. So who the hell am I? And then you just feel like, oh my God. And of course, things will come in and fill up again. But after you've been through that process once, it does sort of get easier to release these old beliefs, because you think, I don't need, you don't have to have a constant sort of external system that tells you who you are. You can just keep releasing, oh, there goes another belief about myself that I really don't need. And then it doesn't matter what comes in, because you're realigning constantly with this sort of, source within you, or your connection to source, and knowing that's the truth of who you are. That all that beautiful stuff underneath.
Is that do you work a lot with beliefs when you're doing your what's blocking your money juju? Do you find that it's the belief system that blocks people from having more money?
Yes, quite often, and sometimes it comes up. It's a very specific event that happened in their life, and that always surprises me when I sort of find, oh, there was this event and it's sort of based in this and this, and people go, oh yeah, I remember that, I was 6 years old, and that, and then so just to then it triggers them to be able to sort of feel into that energy of, okay, I can see how that might have given me a belief about receiving, or a feeling around receiving or giving that has then reflected through my whole life. Yeah.
Another belief that comes up so often with people is that you can't be spiritual and make money. With the people that you work with, does that usually come up as well?
Yeah, in some of them, some that I've done the money juju readings for, but that's more of an overarching theme. I wrote an article about that a few months ago, and that was translated into Romanian, which was really exciting for me because I've never had anything translated, and it was like, oh no, I want to translate my article. So that was like one of my things I can check off my bucket list now. But in that, it was just sort of a guided, a channeled writing that was talking about the idea of, I know, again, I know I keep bringing this back to my own process, but I think it helps as an example. I remember that feeling of when I hit the bottom. I thought, I'm going to do. What I discovered was that I had been afraid of finding the truth within me because I believed that the truth was what I had been told, so that I was unlovable and unworthy and totally useless and had no value in the world. That is what I believed I would find. But what I found instead when I went through the process is that I am so lovable and valuable, and that just by virtue of existing, we have worth, and we are lovable. And that when you find that connection to source, you think, okay, how amazing. So from that place of total worthiness and love, self-love, I said, I'm going to take as long as I take to heal, and it doesn't matter how much it costs. And I think that is where a lot of people with this this feeling that spirituality and money don't combine, is that sometimes you feel so bad, and spirituality or some of these healing modalities have become the kind of last resort for people. Mm-hmm. And that's not fair, because a lot of healers have gone through some incredible things themselves to get to where they are. And it's not just the training they've taken in the physical world, but it is this kind of expansion of themselves through exploring the depths of their own pain. And that is an amazing amount of expertise right there that people go through. So to honor your own process of healing, there needs to be an exchange, because I think otherwise you have then just perpetuated the cycle of victimhood. If you're saying, I feel so bad, why should I have to pay for this? You're not ready to heal. And maybe that sounds harsh, but that seems to have been the experience that I've had. Because when I first started working with intuitive stuff, I was a lot more flexible with people who maybe couldn't afford it, and I'd say, that's okay, pay me later or whatever, but then found that these were not people who were wanting to move forward. And then it's exhausting, because the work that I do, holding space for others, as much as maybe it sounds like I don't have to do anything but sit there, it on an energetic and emotional level is tiring, and it's energizing at the same time. But if I'm doing it in order to support somebody else's victimhood, it's exhausting. Whereas if the person is actually shifting, then their vibration is raising, and they are pulling themselves up to a different level. It's not as tiring somehow. Yeah. don't know if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense to me.
Okay.
I've personally found as well, the more stuff that you work one-on-one with people, and you know, because you're a nice person and you want to help them but they don't want to pay you, it really does, it becomes a very big emotional drain. And then you find out that they go to the next person to get something for free anyway, so you've actually probably just wasted your time. I really do believe in the energy exchange. So you do your money readings and you do soul readings, and where can people find you?
They can find me at thepowerofchange.me, which I think is kind of cool because at first I was thinking, oh, the power of change, hopefully there's a .com, because I don't know, it seems like .com's, a better ending or whatever. But then the me makes so much sense. The power of change, me. It's good.
I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being part of the Inner Goddess interviews. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I hope we can chat some more sometimes. And everyone, go check out Jenny. She's great. She's doing great stuff for the world. So please go check her out on her website. And thank you very much. Thank you. It's been amazing. Thanks, Jenny. And
thank you. I'm so happy to be part of it. I'm really, really, it was lovely to meet you, and it's been beautiful sharing space with you here today.
You too. Thank you, and everybody else, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.